Today's reading is from Matthew chapter 1. Jacob was the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom Jesus was born, who is called the Christ. So there were 14 generations from Abraham to David, 14 generations from David to the exile to Babylon, and 14 generations from the exile to Babylon to the Christ. This is how the birth of Jesus Christ took place. When Mary's mother was engaged to Joseph, before they were married, she became pregnant by the Holy Spirit. Joseph, her husband, was a righteous man. Because he didn't want to humiliate her, he decided to call off their engagement quietly. As he was thinking about this, an angel from the Holy One appeared to him in a dream and said, "Joseph, son of David, don't be afraid to take Mary as your wife, because the child she carries was conceived by the Holy Spirit. She will give birth to a son, and you will call him Jesus, because he will save his people from their sins." Now all of this took place so that what the Holy One had spoken through the prophet would be fulfilled. "Look, young woman will become pregnant and give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel." Emmanuel means God with us. When Joseph woke up, he did just as an angel from God commanded and took Mary as his wife. But he didn't have sexual relations with her until she gave birth to a son. Joseph called him Jesus. For the wisdom contained in these words, we give thanks.
Have compassion for everyone you meet, even if they don't want it. What seems conceit, bad manners, or cynicism is always a sign of things no ears have heard, no eyes have seen. You don't know what wars are going on down where the spirit meets the bone. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Abraham was the father of Isaac, and Isaac the father of Jacob, and Jacob the father of Judah and his brothers, and Judah the father of Perez and Zerah by Tamar, and Perez the father of Hezron, and Hezron the father of Aram, and Aram the father of Amminadab, and Amminadab the father of Nahshon, and Nahshon the father of Salmon, and Salmon the father of Boaz by Rahab, and Boaz the father of Obed by Ruth, and Obed the father of Jesse, and Jesse the father of King David. So begins the Gospel of Matthew. It starts with a genealogy. I've named the first 14 generations from Abraham to David. There are 14 more between David and the devastating exile to Babylon, and then 14 more until Jesus, which is where we find ourselves this morning. This is how the birth of Jesus came about. Joseph had no marital relations with Mary until she had given birth. She had a son. And I put in here, and they named him Jesus. Judy said Joseph named him Jesus, and Lord have mercy on my soul. Are you kidding me? Anyway, this is Matthew's birth story. 1.5 verses. And I'm being generous here. Half a verse at the beginning and a verse at the end of the passage. It's actually just half a verse. She had a son, and Joseph, I guess, named him Jesus. If your mind wandered for a second, perhaps just remembering you have one more gift to buy and that you'll have to get it soon so you can get it into the mail to your loved one before Christmas, or if you're wondering if you unplugged the iron before you left the house, or perhaps thinking about the lunch plans you're looking forward to after worship, if your mind wandered for a second, you would have missed Matthew's birth proclamation. No shepherds, no stable, no heavenly choir, No Magnificat, just half a verse. She had a son, and Joseph named him Jesus. So what's left? Well, two things, really. The first thing is this pesky detail of the pregnancy itself. The world Joseph and Mary lived in the first century, an engagement wasn't just a romantic gesture that ensured showers and parties. It was a legal contract. To be engaged meant, in essence, that the couple was already married but were not yet living together and had not consummated the marriage. So when Joseph found out Mary was pregnant, it was a serious matter. He most certainly would have thought Mary had been unfaithful. There were two options for Joseph in this circumstance. He could react publicly, letting everyone know about Mary's infidelity, which would have meant Mary would be stoned to death. Or he could divorce her, dismiss her quietly, thus saving Mary's life. That's what Joseph decided to do. Until the angel stepped in. We know the rest. Joseph acted even more compassionately than he first intended. He stayed with Mary. Maybe that's why he got to marry. Maybe that's why he got to name Jesus. I don't know. That's the first thing. I just thought of that. The second thing of note, my friends, is the 17 verses of genealogy. Name after name after name. So that you can't pronounce, actually. So what? What does all of this mean for us? Well, this birth, the birth we will celebrate in a couple of weeks, this birth will be a blip in the world radar. Only half a verse for Matthew and not a mention in Mark's gospel. It was nothing special to the world, you see. The camera crew was not outside waiting. No reporter speculated from the newsroom. Giving birth was not a newsworthy event, particularly if you were from Nazareth. There is nothing about this story that is sweet or soothing or lovely or romantic. Life did not play out in the way we'd consider an ideal way. It was complicated and hurtful and scary. Joseph listened to the angel, though, and continued his engagement with Mary, even though it must have troubled him so. Joseph and Mary were ordinary people, just doing what they could do to make it through a difficult time. And Jesus would be their son. Jesus would be born to this couple who were poor and confused and I guess very uncertain about their life together. Emmanuel, God with us, would be born into this chaotic world in less than ideal circumstances to two people who were absolutely unremarkable. And the world would change. And if you look closely at the genealogy that takes up a whopping 17 full verses in Matthew's gospel, you will find generations of unremarkable people just trying to do the same. Abraham left the life he had and his wife Sarah knew to travel to an unknown, left the life he and his Sarah, he didn't leave Sarah, although at one point, anyway, left the life he and his wife Sarah knew to travel on to an unknown location. On this journey, Abraham would make many mistakes, like throwing his wife under the bus to save himself. He was an ordinary man, scared for his life and the future of his family. He went anyway, clinging to the hope God had promised, and the world changed. Rahab, a woman, a Canaanite woman, was a woman of questionable character. Remember, she's the enemy. She was a woman of questionable character. Some called her a prostitute. She hid two Hebrew spies on the roof of her house and redirected the messenger sent by the king of Jericho to find them and kill them. She would save the spies, led by Joshua, who was camped outside the city, The spies' information would provide opportunity for the Hebrew people to enter Jericho safely, God's promise fulfilled. A person of little consequence just doing what she could to make it through a difficult time. And the world changed. Ruth, a Moabite woman, almost as bad as a Canaanite woman, an outsider, traveled back to her mother-in-law's hometown, Bethlehem, after the men in their family died in Moab. We don't know the whole story. We most certainly are familiar with a few of the verses in the story. Ruth speaks to Naomi, "Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God." Ruth, an absolutely unremarkable woman, an outsider to the Jewish people, would stand lovingly by her mother-in-law and do what she could to make it through a difficult time. And the world changed. And David, the youngest of 8 sons of Jesse of Bethlehem, he was so invisible, he was not even included when Samuel came looking to anoint a new king. He was a boy, a shepherd boy, out keeping the sheep. During his life, he made horrendous decisions. One such mistake was having the husband of a woman he wanted for himself sent to the front line of battle, where he would most surely be killed. And the husband was. But David led a nation, stood up to an enemy much greater than himself, and did what he could to get through difficult times. And the world changed. I've named only a few people in those 42 generations listed in the first chapter of Matthew. Each generation included ordinary people trying to do what was right and good, all making mistakes, all vulnerable to a cruel and greedy world, all changing that world in ways they could. Certainly the Gospel of Matthew, from its first words, endeavors to tie Jesus to King David, you'll note, through a genealogy that takes up 17 verses. Jesus came from a king, another Messiah, one who saves, at another time, who came from a family line that had endured through the ages, through hard times. It gave hope to a people who desperately needed a word of hope. In creating this generational inventory, Matthew also shines a light on the lives of the ancestors, the ones who put their lives on the line, who stood up and stood beside people in difficult times. They were unremarkable people just trying to get by. They were insignificant, really. Some, like Rahab and Ruth, were outsiders, and yet they were extraordinary, for they dared to do the right thing even when doing so was challenging and dangerous. The work didn't stop with them. It kept going and going. It kept going, and then one day a baby was born to 2 other unremarkable people in a dangerous and challenging situation, and they named their baby Jesus. These 2 people we know as Mary and Joseph changed the world with their actions, and then their child could change the world. And here's the thing. It didn't stop with them. It didn't stop with Mary and Joseph. It didn't stop with Jesus. The work continued. What if Martin didn't stand up? What if Rosa didn't sit down? What if Malcolm didn't man up? Where would we be now? What if Marley didn't get up, stand up? What if Du Bois didn't come to advance us, and Mandela didn't come to teach us? Where would we be now? What if Maya didn't speak out? What if Langston Hughes didn't write it down? What if Josephine Baker didn't dance it out? Tell me, where would we be now? What if Sojourner never told the truth? Ida B. Wells never printed the news. Harriet never went underground. Where would we be now? These words by India R.E. give us names to add to the great genealogy of change. And the work didn't stop. The work didn't stop with Jesus. It didn't stop with the people mentioned in these powerful lines. It continued and continues to this day. It will continue beyond our lifetimes. Jesus changed the world and showed us, challenged us, invited us to change the world too. Do you see? We are part of the great genealogy of change. It doesn't stop at verse 17 in the chapter of Matthew. Sometimes it's difficult to imagine we, as ordinary human beings, just trying to make it through the day. It's difficult to imagine we can change the world. I expect Abraham experienced uncertainty as he trudged up the mountain with his son Isaac. Just imagine that. Rahab could not have known her compassion would lead to a promise fulfilled. Neither could Ruth have known what was to come as she took her first steps with Naomi towards an adversarial people in Bethlehem. She was the grandma of King David. I bet David didn't have a clue what would happen when anointing oil slid down his forehead and into his eyes. Certainly Mary and Joseph couldn't have been prepared for what happened as their child grew up and made his way through the countryside talking about God's realm, building beloved community, and creating powerful enemies as he went. I wonder if Rosa Parks imagined all that would happen when she sat down at the front of that bus on an ordinary day in Montgomery, Alabama. It's the same for us. Hard to imagine what we can do now and how our actions might change things. But like those who have come before us, we can step up, we can stand up, we can nurture, we can sit down. Our actions might seem like little inconsequential things, but they can lead to something bigger than ourselves. And as the Hopi elders have said, we are the ones we've been waiting for. Who else would it be? Who else is there to continue the legacy of God's love for creation? Who else is there to show compassion, work for justice, live into the dream of shalom? Who else is there if it's not us? India Ari's prophetic voice rings out for us to hear in her chorus. Hear these words, because it's up to us. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We can change the world. Our love can change the world. Oh, if we would but acknowledge the power we have to make the world a better place. I invite you to ponder that possibility during this season when we once again await the 43rd generation of change makers, a baby born in humble circumstances to an unremarkable couple. He will be called Jesus. Emmanuel, God with us, and his love will change the world. Love. It can change the world, just as it has done throughout the ages. Our love can change the world. May it be so.